For today's headlines, PDP Laban flashes clamor card to go. Pacman prepares partyless run. Leachon lynched over vax claim. DILG Caloocan trace hostage drama watcher. Fastest growth expected for Philippines. Homegrown Cebu supermarket set to close. Gawilan, Bejino fall short. PNP to help LGU with contact tracing from hostage incident. Good morning, I am Venice Bautista and you are watching Tribune News on Q. Today is August 31, 2021, and here are the latest news of this Tuesday morning. Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo on Monday rejected the nomination to run for president on May 9, 2022, but that was before the clamor aired by Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan President Alfonso Cu make him reconsider. Cusi, the newly elected PDP Laban president, said he hopes Go would rethink his stand as the party heads into a national convention in Bulacan on September 8th. Cusi said that while they respect Go's decision, the National Executive Council remains determined to push the senator as a standard bearer of PDP Laban in the next year's elections. Officials of the Cusi-led faction have repeatedly stressed that the qualities the senator shares with President Duterte makes him the most logical successor to the chief executive. Earlier in the day, the senator wrote Cusi a letter to formally decline his nomination as presidential candidate of PDP Laban. Go, chair of Senate Committee of Health, reiterated that he has no interest in running for a higher office, that he wants to put his focus on addressing the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Not one to turn his back from a fight, Senator Manny Pacquiao will run for president as an independent candidate in the May 2020 election. In the Commission on Elections recognizes his rival PDP Laban, party led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cu. There's only one route to take for the octuple world boxing champion, Ron Monsayak, executive director of the Pacquiao-led PDP Laban wing, said on Monday. The lawmaker is prepared to vie for the country's highest post even without an official political party, Monsayak said, as Cusi's group appears to have total control of the PDP Laban despite yet another election supposedly held on Monday. Duterte is currently the PDP Laban chair, but his post is now being claimed by Pimentel as his. Pimentel and Pacquiao also call themselves a truthful and genuine PDP Laban, to which Cusi's group balks with a support of the majority. Pacquiao, however, is to go at it alone, despite invitations from several other political parties that need popular figures like him, including the opposition One Sambayan, which earlier made public its consideration of the lawmaker as a probable presidential candidate. Lawyer Melvin Matibag, Secretary General of the Cusi-led group, said Pimentel has no position in the party. He maintained that Duterte will remain the chair of PDP Laban. Monsayak, meanwhile, said his group will file an amended sworn information update statement before the COMELEC with Pimentel as its chairman. Despite the disagreement, the group said it will remain in support of the current administration until President Duterte's last day in office. Both groups have scheduled their own party assembly this September. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion reiterated this on Monday in support to Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., chief implementer of the government's vaccination program, who countered disinformation against brands with supposed low efficacy rates. Concepcion also said it in response to Dr. Tony Leachon, a former palace advisor on the pandemic, who told could have purchased vaccines with high efficacy rates earlier. Galvez said all vaccines will protect citizens from severe infection and death. Brands, particularly the Chinese brand Sinovac, many of which were donated by Beijing to Manila. Bonus variant. These are Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, Janssen, and Barrett Biotech. Department of Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergire called Leachon's remark as baseless. Leachon Hospital and Medical Center Infection and Prevention Control Unit head Dr. Joseph Buensalito said in an interview with Daily Tribune's morning show, ising na, that if we will look at our hospitals now, like PGH, patients that are admitted now to around 23 hospitals in NCR, 70% are actually unvaccinated. Tribune News on Q will be back after these reminders.
Magpabakuna kayo.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Oh, vaccination, isolation. Gotta keep up with my nutrition. Gotta maintain my body condition. Then I can take my vaccination. What do I choose? What do I take? As long as it is not a fake. AstraZeneca, Moderna, BioNTech, even Sinovac, okay na. Babakuna ka ba? 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 Vaccination for the nation, no more isolation. With vaccination. Babakuna ka ba? 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 Paturok, paturok, paturok.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
We are back on Tribune News on Q. The Interior Department is doing contact tracing among curious bystanders of a hostage-taking in Caloocan City last Friday. In this regard, the contact tracers of the DILG have also ordered the thorough tracking of individuals, and according to the DILG, the huge gathering of people was worrying and could potentially be super spreader, in that it was clear that social distancing protocols were not followed. The DILG Secretary Eduardo Año also said that the entire barangay where the incident occurred, as well as neighboring areas, should also consider contact tracing its residents. Caloocan City Police Chief Samuel Mina insisted that they immediately cordoned off the place at C3 Road, Barangay 14, and weaned off the people, who returned despite persistent police warnings, to the point they disrupted negotiations with the suspect. Meanwhile, according to Caloocan Mayor Oka Malapitan, the entire municipality took immediate action and conducted contact tracing, which is still being carried out. The local government, however, admitted that it's difficult to identify all people at the incident, whether they're residents of the city. The COVID-19 pandemic is taking a substantial toll in the Asia-Pacific economies, with Moody's Analytics predicting a crooked economic recovery line, as trade, which is seen to provide that needed lifeline in the region, remains uncertain. Moody's Analytics said the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong are nations considered the most volatile in the region, according to its latest commentary. Each economy experienced a quarter-to-quarter decline in gross domestic product in the second quarter. For its mid- and long-term projections, the research forecasted the Philippines to register the highest GDP growth in 2022 and 2023, with 8.8% and 6.8% expansion in the next 2 years, respectively. Moody's Analytics sees the Philippines expanding 4% this year after declining 9.4% in 2020. According to the research, the improving labor market conditions in the U.S. and increasingly in Europe will allow global consumer spending to complement investment spending as primary international growth drivers. Moody's Analytics said that the Philippines has only a small exposure to goods trade, with the US, New Zealand is more closely dependent upon trade of commodities with China, which should hold steady but may not accelerate in the near term. In other news, the Department of Labor and Employment in Central Visayas confirmed on Monday that a homegrown chain of supermarkets in Metro Cebu has filed for permanent closure due to financial losses. DOLE spokesperson Luchel Taniza disclosed that the supermarket chain Fuda SaverSmart and its parent company ONN Town Center Corporation filed for permanent closure on August 23, which will see at least 305 employees out of work. Of the total employees, 243 were directly hired by Fuda and 62 hired by ONN Town Center Corporation. This week, the supermarket chain announced on social media that they are closing all branches after operating for 19 years, and as of the moment, it is currently having a closeout sale for all of their items until September 22 or until supplies last. The Labor Department in the region has vowed to give assistance to affected workers on the impending closure of the supermarket chain and will be conducting profiling of the affected workers to determine the needed interventions. The labor regional official also reiterated that terminated workers who have not done anything wrong must be paid with separation pay. Tribune News on Q will be back. Stay with us.
It's time for the world to know. Outstanding Filipinos in America. The 11th Outstanding Filipinos in America Awards 2021. A salute to the heroes of coronavirus. Coming back live in person at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Home of the TOFA Awards since 2011.
We are back on Tribune News on Q. For our sports news, Ernie Gawilan and Bejino missed the finals of their respective events after completing their qualifying heats in the Tokyo Paralympic swimming competitions at the Tokyo Aquatic Center here early on Monday. Seemingly spent after his all-out effort the previous day, Gawilan finished 6th and last in the second heat of the men's 100-meter backstroke race in a time of 1 minute and 21.60 seconds, capping his campaign after competing in 3 events in the Sports Fest. He wound up in 10th place overall in the heats, 12.48 seconds behind Argentine top-notcher Pipo Carlomagno, who led the 8 finalists with a personal best time 1 minute and 0.912 seconds. Bejino was also cut in the men's 50-meter butterflies event, placing 7th in the first heat in 36.14 seconds and 15th overall among 16 entries, 5.13 seconds behind China's Wang Jingang, who showed the way to the finals in a time of 30.81 seconds. The top 8 qualifiers in both events advanced to the finals scheduled later in the afternoon. While it was Gawilan's swan song, Bejino still has 2 more races left in the 400-meter freestyle on Thursday and the 100-meter backstroke the next day, and closing out the gallant stand of the Filipino Paralympians, whose participation here was backed by the Philippine Sports Commission. The coach believed that his wards would have performed much better here if not for the limited preparation time back home due to the restrictive conditions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Swimming coach Tony Ong said Gawilan and Bejino are very talented. He just hopes that they can give a longer training period for the next year's Asia Para Games. General Ronaldo Olay shared with the host of Daily Tribune's morning show Gising Na that Philippine National Police General Guillermo Eleazar directed the PNP to help the LGU with conducting a contact tracing for the hostage incident in Caloocan City on August 27, 2021. People flocked to the hostage scene with no regard to any safety measures or social distancing. Worries sparked as this could be a super spreader event. In line with this, OLAI is urging the citizens to strictly adhere to the health protocols amid the ongoing pandemic. He assures that the implementation of quarantine control points and enforcement checkpoints are still ongoing to ensure the public's safety. That wraps up the stories this morning. Before we go, we would like to thank the SM Store, the Department of Tourism, Arena Center, MG Motors, Hina Motors, Security Bank, and Overseas Community Affairs Council member Alan Lin of Republic of China for their continued support. Again, this is Venice Bautista, and you are watching Tribune News on Cue. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay at home. Good morning.
Catch the latest news on our website tribune.net.ph and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tribune Now. The Daily Tribune is one with the nation in facing the COVID-19 crisis, and in line with this, the Daily Tribune digital edition and press reader is now available for free online. You can also download the Daily Tribune app on Apple Store for iOS users and Google Play for Android users to get the latest and most comprehensive news online. Daily Tribune is also inviting everyone to join its Community Viber Katribu to get updates on the freshest and hottest news and entertainment stories of the day. Tarcito emoticons are also available on our Community Viber. Just click on the link in this video to join.
Magpabakuna kayo.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Ang bayan kong Pilipinas, hirap ang dinadanas. Sari-sari ang problema dahil sa pandemya. Matapang ang Pilipino, matapang tayo. Kakayanin natin to, kaya natin to. Like Andres Bonifacio, he is our hero. Hindi atakbo, hindi atakbo. Nandiyan na ang bakuna. Magpapaturok ka ba? Supilit na ang pandemya. Magpapaturok ka ba? Huwag mawalan ng pag-asa. May pag-asa. Malapit na ang ginhawa. May ginhawa. Mawawala ang pandemya. Mawawala na rin yan. It's gonna be okay na. Okay na. Okay na. Okay na. Nandiyan na ang bakuna. Magpapaturok ka ba? Supilit na ang pandemya. Magpapaturok ka ba? Nandiyan na ang bakuna. Magpapaturok ka ba? Supilit na ang pandemya. Magpapaturok ka
This
ba?
public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.